Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, today this is the only video I will make on Sunday. I had some things to take care of and probably I will end up to make only one video a day, and probably this should be enough, even though it's never enough for me because I have too much to say about too many things. Therefore I probably gonna make more than one video per day, maybe two. That's my goal. Make 2 videos per day, one in the morning, one in the evening, and maybe some in between, but that's where I want to go. I always have things to discuss, so let's cut the crap and start the topics. The main topic is NATO, and NATO is the military arm, the enforcer of the globalist interests. That's how you have to look at NATO. It can describe itself as a military alliance, defensive alliance, trying to keep peace in Europe and in the world without being assigned or voted. They will just do it because that's how big of a heart they have. There's those people in NATO. So you understand, NATO is the military arm of the financial, military industrial complex and energy sector. These are the main guys. Pharma, big pharma is somewhere down the list, but it's still there. All right, they have to work their way up pretty soon, and they do a very good job in the Western countries. Good job, if you know what I mean. So what do we have here? We have a few articles in which NATO first warns Putin. So first, Mark Rutte, the current Secretary General of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So these guys have a secretary. I said this for many times before and I will say it again. He is only a secretary. That means he has no power. The only power he has comes from the guys in charge of him who tell him what to say. All right? So when Rutte or Stoltenberg before him come out and say, you know what guys, Russia, be good, otherwise we will smack you, that doesn't come from him. It comes from somewhere else who made a decision and he's just parroting. Understand this? He's a secretary. All right? He's not a director. I know a director and a secretary. The secretary does, what to the director, schedules meetings, answer phone calls. This is a secretary, And indeed, it has some power because you have to go through the secretary to get to the director. So sometimes you have to be nice, but if you're strong enough, you smack around the secretary and you enter and you talk to the director. So what's going on here? Mark Rutte warns Putin. He warns Putin against what? Hold your horses. Against initiating Putin nuclear conflict. So it's the world of inversions. It's the reality of inversions. Up is down, down is up, left is right, right is left. So Rutte, in the name of NATO, warns Putin, do not start a nuclear war. I have to remind Mr. Rutte, who's a Dutch guy, you cannot trust him, that only one country currently in NATO used atomic bombs in the history of humanity, committing war crimes twice. That's a pattern already. And they would have gone the 3rd time, the 4th time, and so on. Genocidal criminal. Anyway, so I have to remind him that if someone initiated a war already, a nuclear war, it was the atomic war initiated by his bosses. The organization is owned by Al Capone. He is the main guy in this military arm of the guys in charge of the Western world so far. So that's the first topic. The second topic, let me show you here. Mark Rutte warns Putin against initiating nuclear conflict. So a secretary warns the president. Remember, this secretary has no nuclear weapons, has no army, has nothing. He just has a mouth, pretty mouth. Remember the remembrance, whatever that, reverence, whatever, with Burt Reynolds? Yeah, sure, I got a pretty mouth out there, yeah? Okay, oink, oink. That's what Rutte is. Older people know what I'm talking about. warns Putin against initiating. Have you ever heard Putin warning NATO against initiating a nuclear conflict? No, but these guys are talking like that's a given. This guy. So Vladimir Putin must remember that nuclear war must never start. Don't start it then, NATO, as it cannot be won. Therefore, back the fuck off from Ukraine, I would say. All right, this Rutte warned in an interview with a Sunday edition of Die Welt, the World, on November 9th. So, just so you know, the reason why the West could never win against Russia is because Russia has nuclear weapons. They knew it before the war in Ukraine, they know it now, and they will know it after the war in Ukraine ends, which is going to be just an armistice for the next round. Could be in Georgia or Azerbaijan or Armenia or Romania or maybe the Baltic states. It will be part 2 and part 3 and part 4 until guys in London or New York City or in Moscow disappear. One of these guys, of the 3 main guys, disappears. Then they will take it easy for a while. They will regroup unless someone destroys the other one, like the Romans destroyed Carthage. Destroyed it, burned it, took it rock by rock out and put salt so nothing grows back. So this is what they try to do with the Russians now. If you don't know about that, please read about those wars. All right, so that's he warned. So we are actually in the defensive. They are now pushing the narrative that we the West, we are the victims here. No, we are, and he's gonna attack us because we just stay here and wait for him, and the Russians advance towards us. Remember, since 1991, the Russians have been advancing toward NATO. Remember, first they took Baltic states, and then the Russians took Hungary, then the Russians took Romania, then Bulgaria, remember, then Czech Republic, then Slovakia, then Poland. Remember, it was the Russians who did it, not NATO. So they warned NATO, they warned Russia to stay away, don't come towards us, we come to you. So I come with a knife and say, hey, don't you even dare to bring a knife. I got one, I'm just defensive, but I'm attacking you. All right, you got the idea. Next one. Russia Today. NATO won't risk war with Russia over Ukraine. We knew this. My friends. We knew this since the 24th and before 24th of February 2022. We knew they will try not to risk. Probably the Russians told them, guys, here is the end of the line. Beyond this, we're going to queue up. And it's not going to be, nicely. We have no patience with Poland, with Romania, and with the Baltics. Maybe with Romania more patience, but with the Poles and with the Baltics, with the Finns nowadays, zero patience. Why? They had a big beak. All right, that's what it. Why? Hey, should I say yeah? Hey, Russia, Should I say hey? And the Americans say yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna protect you. All right. So NATO won't risk war with Russia over Ukraine. We knew that. Since the beginning. When they said we want to inflict a decisive and strategic defeat on Russia, and people say we have to defeat Russia. Ukraine must win. People with half of brain at least knew. What do you mean you want to win? If these guys are cornered, they push a button and everybody goes to Moses, Jesus, Allah, wherever they go, Brahma, to whomever they want. All right? So this is what Stoltenberg says now after he's out of the office. Do you remember this piece of garbage, what he used to say when he was in the boots of this piece of garbage? Do you remember? He said, we have to inflict against Russia a strategic defeat. Ukraine must not win and must not lose. Russia must win. It was the right decision not to send Western troops to assist Kiev. You know why? Because the Russians would have fucked you up. Stoltenberg. It was not a decision. The decision was not made as a rational decision in a way, man. Wait, we are responsible. The Russians are crazy, but we are responsible. We will not send it because, man, we're going to go in a World War III. We don't want this. Why? We have nuclear weapons, and if they initiated the war, we're gonna destroy everything. But we can't do this. We are responsible, man. So stop. We're gonna just punch Russia through Ukraine, jab, 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 and Russia cannot strike us. Good? It seems like that is the end of the story for now. So it was not like, man, we were the adults in the room. No, you were the imbeciles. Let's move on. Next one. Former Secretary General explains why NATO did not close airspace over Ukraine. Do you hear this? So this Stoltenberg again tells us why NATO, National Alliance, the North Atlantic Alliance, did not close airspace. Did they have the authority? My first question, did they have the authority? No, they didn't. So of course you couldn't. And you know why? Because the Russians told you. What do you mean close the airspace? Who are you? Remember another guy who NATO closed its country's airspace and then they killed him? His name is Gaddafi. You remember the guy? NATO told Gaddafi, we institute a no-flight zone over your country so you cannot use your air force to destroy the rebels, the democratic forces that we control, like the reformed jihadists in Syria. Remember? The same thing. That's how they won, and that's how they said, oh, okay, with the drones, Gaddafi is over there, go and get him. And they get him, and you saw the American justice through some thugs in Libya. That's what happened. And then you see Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, Madam, we went, we saw, he's dead. Very democratic and very, she likes justice very much. All right, so he says, why did not close airspace? Because the Russians told you, the moment you shoot any of our assets, air assets, drones, missiles or airplanes over Ukraine, we're going to strike directly in your countries. That's exactly what happened. So he explains what. Let's see what he says here. Obviously, they were the better men here, okay? Former NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, has explained why NATO did not impose. NATO could not impose it. What do you mean impose? Who are you? Are you involved? A no-fly zone over Ukraine at the start of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. How much arrogance? How much arrogance? All right, so let's see what it is. This is Stoltenberg has said he was afraid their conversation might have been the Ukrainian president's last phone call as the West feared for his life. And I'm going, he called me from a bunker in Kiev with Russian tanks just up the road. And he said, I accept you're not sending in NATO ground troops, though I disagree. But please close the airspace. What do you mean? Prevent the Russian planes, drones, and helicopters from flying and attacking us. Who's you? You are in the Middle East. Who's you? The Ukrainians? Okay. Stoltenberg recalls that NATO had closed airspace over certain countries to protect civilians in the past. How about the Russians, close the airspace over, Venezuela? Can the Russians do that? Or let's say they close the airspace over, the United States of America. The US cannot use anything, cannot fly until the Russians tell them. Under what kind of jurisdiction? Legality? Because Zelensky can call them and tell them? Still, Zelensky, Ukraine is not part of NATO. Under what kind of authority you do that? Keeping peace and protect civilians. But only we can do that. You cannot do that. Only we. Why? Because we are the good guys, man. All right. For example, over Bosnia and Herzegovina and over northern Iraq, to protect the Kurds and Libya. But in response to Zelensky's request, the NATO Secretary General said no. He said no because some other people said no. And if there is a Russian plane or helicopter in the air, we have to shoot it down. And then we are in full war between NATO and Russia. And we're not willing to do that. As Biden, who was US president at the time, put it, we will not risk a third world war for Ukraine. We all knew that. But hey, what can you do? Let's go to the next one. New voice of Ukraine. Stoltenberg, Ukraine denied no-fly zone to avoid World War III. And I told you exactly why. Next one. Stoltenberg, timely aid might have prevented war in Ukraine. So this garbage again claims that if they would have given, the military arm of the globalists would have given the alien Zelensky some aid, which is military, right, and weapons and so on, the Russians would have been afraid to do anything. This is what he says. But I have to remind Stoltenberg that Ukraine was a signatory of the 1994 Budapest Memorandum. That's when they had to give the Russians their nuclear warheads. Remember? In exchange for being assured that guaranteed that their country, their territory will not be attacked by anybody, including Russia or the United States of America, under the promise, signed promise, that Ukraine will be a neutral country. That is, will not be aligned with any military alliance. NATO is a military alliance. So, in 2008, if you remember George Bush, the analphabet, the illiterate guy who went to Yale and Harvard, that's why Ivy League schools, bye-bye, right? He said in Bucharest, in the NATO summit, one day Georgia, the country of Georgia, and Ukraine will become part of NATO. So do you mean they're going to become part of the military alliance against the 1994? And he said, yes. And Putin said, huh? There you go. In 2014, they overthrew a government, democratically elected, with all this garbage as everywhere else, and they instituted a puppet government. And then those guys broke the 1994 neutrality. That's how it is, Stoltenberg. So don't come to me and tell me that if you would have given weapons to Ukraine. What do you mean? You are not allowed to. You're not supposed to. Against the Russians? Or to help them? With what? With personnel? Yeah, that's what Stoltenberg says. Next, BBC bosses quit amid scandal over doctored Trump speech. I always told you that BBC is not an independent broadcaster, if you want. British broadcaster company is not. Okay, Washington earlier branded the British state-funded broadcaster 100% fake news for its depiction of the 2021 US Capitol riots. It seems like all the conspiracy theories are coming true, huh? The BBC Director General and Head of News have resigned after British state broadcaster was accused of misleading the public in a documentary about US President Donald Trump's role in 2021 Capitol riots. All right, I will tell you an example, two things. The moment I stopped believing BBC, and the second one is the role of the media, my friends, in this garbage. All right, let's go to this, the next article on the same topic. Top BBC bosses resign after criticisms of the broadcaster's editing of a Trump speech. All right, so let's start with the first one. I had a recording of the 1945, 6th of August 1945 to be precise, after the Americans committed a war crime, dropping an atomic bomb over a city full of civilians. NATO would have instituted a no-fly zone, I guess. And the BBC, I have the recording on an MP3. For about 20 years I have it on. Maybe it's already gone from the MP3. I have to dig and find it and play it for you. And that broadcast, a radio broadcast, the whatever guy from the BBC, whatever he was, anchor, whatever he was, speaker, he said that we have to have a communique from the Americans stating that the Americans dropped an atomic bomb, first atomic bomb, over military installations in Hiroshima. 6th of August 1945. Military installations. Now, I don't know if they were just reporting what the Americans said and said, all right, or that was their interpretation. But that, for me, it was like military installations. You were lying like pigs, all right? I remember in America when I came, some people say, well, we don't really like our news, but BBC, if you listen to BBC, man, BBC not, you have to say BBC Britain. Those are, man, news. I was like, okay, good. So that's the first one. The second one is the documentaries. I stopped watching documentaries, really, especially about important things in history that I didn't know. You can't learn. They're just propagandizing you. They just regiment you. Why? I tell you, you don't know anything about the subject, so you have some historians with PhDs, giving you a documentary. And in the documentary, they will make a point. This is good, this is bad. Basically, it's always like that, right? But they ignore certain events that they know about, but you don't. So you can't counter them. The problem is, again, I was watching a Second World War documentary, I can remember on what. And I think it was about the Ardennes, the counteroffensive from Ardennes. And and then I was like, what? Because I know about it. I said, what? What? The interpretation of the documentary was claiming something that was still debatable. All right, so if you want, it was that movie lately. What was the movie lately? A few years ago. I always have a problem remembering it. In the Second World War, where the Germans cornered the French and the expeditionary corps of the Brits, and they eventually just are helped from across the channel, English Channel, and they're transported over there. And Hitler stopped for about 48 hours his attack. He could have destroyed all of these guys, but he let them be. They say, well, no, because he was exhausted. No, he extended a hand again, like he did many, many times. Did you know that bad guy Hitler told the Brits about, I don't know, like 25 times, hey, let's stop, let's talk, let's stop. And the Brits said, no, we want to destroy you, my friends. Remember Dunkirk? Dunkirk was the thing. So they came and they showed you Dunkirk, how these guys, why did they wait? Well, they're not going to say that guy said, this is like Putin said in Kiev, goodwill sign. No, you can't say that. So when I knew about these things, historical documents, it's not like I'm just garbaging here. I was like, these guys are lying. And I said, imagine how many other documentaries I watched when I don't know anything about the subject, and they're just giving me their interpretation of reality and historical events. They lied to me. I would think that indeed there were 6 million. Indeed, I would think that this happened. And so, what? But if you know more, you don't watch anymore because you know they're lying. The same with BBC. BBC, you can't counter them. And the last one right here, let me show you. NATO is ready for war. Right there. NATO deploy 800,000 troops in case of, again, war with Russia. Of course, Russia will attack. 800,000. Do you have anything beyond 800,000? That's always like this. In Romania. Romanians can build beautiful things. The only problem is they don't maintain them. So they build a beautiful, let's say, library. The first time, I don't know, one of the neons where it says Romanian, National Library. And one of the eye gets dark. It's going to stay like that for years. It looks first for the first 2 years, but when the first one is no more light, it's going to be Romanian National Library. It's not going to be over there. Why? Because they don't maintain shit. If tomorrow, let's say I don't know how you call it in America, the outside of a building collapses a little bit, it's going to stay like that because of, how do you call it? I can't fucking remember the word. When it's water underneath and just collapses the cement that you put over. I can't remember the name. Anyway, they're not going to fix it for years. But everything is new. Everything else is new. They could not maintain it. Okay? So the same with these guys. Yeah, you have 800,000 people of about, I don't know, pink hairs, no balls, fat fucks, and all that. After they are by the sturdy Russians, do you have the second echelon? What are you going to bring? Your druggies? Who are you going to bring? Who wants to fight for your money? Because that's all what the West has right now is a heart. Money. They don't have national identity. They don't have racial identity, that's for sure. Or ethnic identity. So why should I fight? For our values. Like what? Snipping my balls? Yeah. So they have no soul. These guys, the same guys, have had Europe snips his own balls. Little by little. Why? Take you out of a soul. If you don't know who you are, they can tell you that you are X, Y, and Z whenever they want. Or you're bad, you're a criminal, you did only bad things in the world, all your history is full of shit because you don't know your own history. Why? They teach you your history, not you don't teach your sons your history. No, they teach your sons, and then your sons gonna hate you, gonna hate anything that's about your ethnicity, race, nation, and so on. So yeah, bring the 800,000, and then after that what? Zero. Jerk off, not even that. It's all of the limb or not even there attached. Detached, my friends. Yes, this is NATO. NATO is pushing it now, is a narrative of we are the good guys. We could have done a lot of things, but we are responsible and we safeguard you. And the BBC is another example of liars. They all lie. They all lie. All lie. You got it? All governments lie and the media. Okay, by omission, by interpretation, by analysis, like the documentaries. They give you a skewed conclusion of an event, ignoring, hoping that you don't know. And if you don't know, they don't care. That's not for you. That's for the guys who don't know anything. Like me in certain instances. I didn't know about anything about that subject. And I was sucking the information in from those guys without knowing. But then when I read more, I was like, that's a lie. Those guys lie by omission. Why? Because this piece of historical evidence, if those PhDs would have put it in their documentary, the whole thesis would have collapsed. But they hope that you don't know about it, therefore it did not collapse. And you're going to leave parroting everybody else. We destroyed. We told the Russians, the Soviets, the Russians in Russian missile crisis in Cuba. We showed them. The Russians pooped their pants. Ha ha ha. Why? Because the Americans are told only the middle of the issue, not how it started and not how it ended. It stops before the end, because there's more to the story. Again, we bankrupted Soviet Union. That's why Soviet Union collapsed. Communism was not workable. They were bankrupt. The Soviet Union was bankrupt. That's not true. This is how much that really is from this is how much it was with Soviet Union at that time. But hey, they are told that Reagan said, we are going to outspend them. And the Soviet says, yes, and we're stupid and we're going to try to do the same thing to you. Like, I don't know, 200 or 500 or 1,000 nuclear missiles are not enough. Why would you need 12,000? Why would you need 12,000 when you need about 500 to blow everything up and turn off the light forever? Again, garbage, garbage, garbage. By omission, by interpretation, by ignorance. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth and be just.